Hello, this is Geotech Land. Let's take a look at what is new in the world of tech. GNOME 40 has been officially released with a complete UI and workflow overhaul. So now when you go to the activities overview, you will now see an overview of your desktops or workspaces. So it should bring massive improvements to your workflow, especially if you work with multiple open windows here. The dash panel has been moved from the left-hand side down to the middle. And overall, the desktop environment should work a lot better with a laptop, with introductions to new touchpad gestures for entering the overview and switching workspaces. And with the upcoming redesigned GNOME Software Center, I think it's going to bring the GNOME desktop environment up to par with something like Mac OS's design. I think the only other thing that would be nice to have in GNOME that would separate it from Mac OS and Windows is if it gave you the ability to choose your own layout. Like, you could have the recommended GNOME layout, and then you can switch to something more similar to a Mac OS layout, a Windows layout, or other layouts. I think that would be an interesting addition as well. The team over at Pine64 have officially released their PinePhone Beta Limited Edition phone that's going to be equipped with Manjaro's Plasma Mobile Edition. The pricing is still at $149.99, but you can get a different package called the Convergence package for $199.99. That includes a USB-C dock. It's pretty identical to similar versions of the PinePhone that were released earlier, except maybe some minor hardware tweaks, such as the newest PCBA or printed circuit board assembly revision 1.2b. So this is very nice that they're continually releasing new editions of the PinePhone. And I myself, because I shattered my previous PinePhone, the Braveheart edition, I decided to get this phone. You can expect some future videos covering this version of the PinePhone. Richard Stallman returns to the Free Software Foundation 18 months after controversial rape comments. Stallman left in 2019 after emails about Jeffrey Epstein and age of consent laws were brought to the surface. And this has caused a lot of controversy in the open source world. I'm going to be releasing a video on this topic hopefully soon, but my stance is that he said some terrible things and they were insensitive and he should be stepping down. But an interesting question is whether there's anything he can do to sort of be forgiven for his comments. I think that's an interesting question, and I'm going to be going more into depth on that, so stay tuned for a future video. Linus Torvalds weighs in on Rust language in the Linux kernel. So a lot of programmers have been wanting to base the Linux kernel on Rust rather than C. Rust is a memory-safe language that would improve security without sacrificing too much in terms of performance. And I think it's a good thing, I'm all in favor of change, and a lot of developers seem to really like Rust. And it's nice to know that Linus is open to the idea. There's already a lot of libraries being added to the kernel to make this transition. So it's going to be interesting how this helps improve security in the Linux kernel. And I'm glad to see that this is moving forward. Tesla is now accepting Bitcoin as payment to purchase their vehicles. They're saying that they won't convert it to fiat currency. So far, they're only allowing people in the US to purchase using Bitcoin, but they do plan on introducing different payment options to bring it to other countries later in the year. At least from my understanding, if they do convert it to fiat, then they'll be potentially reducing the value of Bitcoin, and their intention is to keep growing it and keep making it more mainstream. Of course, in their fine print, they're warning users that if they enter a Bitcoin address incorrectly, their Bitcoin may become irretrievably lost or destroyed. So that's interesting. I wonder how many people are going to try to buy a Tesla and enter the wrong address and then just lose cryptocurrency. That'll be pretty interesting. I don't think you can buy the car and pay full price. I'm pretty sure you're going to have to go on a payment plan. If this Bitcoin payment system is here to stay, because I remember Steam had introduced something similar, and then due to the price of Bitcoin going down, then they ended up removing that ability. So I wonder if something like that could happen, but otherwise seems like Bitcoin is gaining a lot of traction. Apple bent its rules for Russia and other countries will take note. So essentially what is happening here is that Apple, like many other companies, want to expand their market. They're moving into Russia, and the Russian government is saying that, hey, you can sell phones here, but you have to meet one of our demands. Now, so far, it doesn't look like this will require them to have the apps pre-installed, but rather include an extra step that prompts them to install the list of apps. Seems like the users can opt out not to download them. This doesn't surprise me. Each country has their own laws, and whether for good or for bad, if you want to do business there, they're going to want something in return. And again, Apple's not thinking about the morality of this request. They're just thinking about releasing and selling their iPhones in a new market. So that's just the nature of business here, for good or for bad. Total War, Rome Remastered, and Metro Exodus are coming to Linux in April. So it looks like the Metro Exodus team are going to be releasing their game natively on Linux. And according to a tweet, they'll even have ray tracing enabled on here. So I think that's very cool. And it's good to see more games coming natively to Linux, besides relying on Steam's Proton. I think that's better for Linux and better for performance. In addition, Feral Interactive will be releasing Total War Rome Remastered, and Feral has always released a lot of games for Linux, so the more games the better. I'm hoping to see more companies start releasing games natively on Linux. I've never played the Metro games myself, but now that they're releasing Metro Exodus natively on Linux, I may have to check it out and play it on my Twitch and YouTube gaming for Linux channel. So check it out. You have reached the end of this episode. If you like this content, tune in next week for some more awesome tech news.